Hi, I'm Harry Rock, and welcome to another edition of the Westfield Council on Aging Presents. This is a special collaborative between Tina Gorman, Executive Director of the Westfield Senior Center, and Pete Coles, who is the producer of WCPC Westfield Cable Channel 15. Our topic today is it time to sell the house? And my guest today to explore that subject is Leslie Lambert. Leslie's been a realtor here in the Westfield area for 33 years. She's a certified senior real estate specialist with training and education specifically targeted to assist older adults. Leslie is also a member of the Friends of the Westfield Senior Center Board of Directors, where she has served ably for about the last 6 years. I'm also a member of that board, and so we do get to see each other on Zoom normally every month. So today, I think it's going to be a really, really interesting show. Many of you, as you start to age up, are starting to think about downsizing and making life a lot simpler. And one of the biggest parts of that is the decision of when do you sell your house and move into something else. And we're going to talk about what that something else might be and when is it time to sell the house and just how do you go about it. But I'm really excited, though, to have Leslie here. Thanks so much for making time out of your busy schedule to spend with us and just to enlighten our viewers here as to when they should think about selling their house. So let's look, just to get a little bit of background, how do you become a certified senior real estate specialist, and what does that exactly mean?
So you have to take a special certification class through the National Association of Realtors. In my case, it was an online course that took about, I think it was about 24 hours worth of training. And it's a special education to inform the realtor that's taking the class best practices for assisting our senior population when it's time for them to make a real estate decision.
Wow. And what got you, you've been in real estate most of your adult life. What got you interested in that to start with?
My mom was a real estate broker,
Oh,
and
really?
my parents were both investors, so I grew up doing real estate as a family my whole life.
Oh, wow.
So I initially got my license to help pay my way through college, and through a series of fortunate and unfortunate events, as life goes, I never left the real estate industry. And as it turned, if you'd asked me when I was 18, are you going to be a realtor the rest of your life, I would have told you absolutely no. But it ended up being just the perfect field for me and gave me the ability to be a single mom to my two daughters and still be present for them.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
it all worked out in the end.
Yeah, that's neat. And how did you get connected to the senior center with the Friends Board?
I was looking for a volunteer opportunity. I had more time now that my daughters are older, and I've always enjoyed volunteering in the Westfield community. And so I had reached out to a few friends asking them if they knew of any boards of directors or volunteer opportunities. And one of my close friends was friends with the then president of the board and put me together with him.
Oh, very cool. Well, you've been a great addition. Well, I should. I'm the new I'm the new person on the block, but I could tell based on your knowledge, you were certainly a great addition to the board, and your contribution is really significant. I know. I always enjoy listening to your thoughts when we have our board meetings. So let's jump into this, and we'll start right with the big nut, which is when is it the right time to sell your house? When should people start thinking about that as they start getting older in life and want to simplify things?
I tell my older clients that they should start thinking about it as soon as possible, even if they're not ready to do it for a few years. If you've been living in your home for a long time, which many people in this demographic have, you've probably got a lot of things to situate before you can hit the market. So, I don't mind, and I encourage my potential clients and current clients to start having conversations years in advance, and putting all the key pieces in place. The right time is when it's right for you. There's no, it doesn't make sense to try to game the timing of it. If it's time for you to move and you feel like this is when we should do it, then that's the right time.
That's interesting. Now, people are always thinking about downsizing and, moving to a simpler lifestyle. Can we talk a little bit about what people should be looking at? So, what is that next step? Is it you're seeing a lot of these senior, I'm not going to use the right terminology here, but senior communities, assisted living. What are some of the options that people have? I see commercials on television all the time. I think I just saw one for Palmer, just some new complex in Palmer. And of course, we have right here in Westfield a couple of options. But what are the options that people can think about as that next step when they do sell the house?
Yeah, so as we all know, the boomer generation is a large generation, and because of that, there's a huge population of senior people looking to downsize, and there's many options for them, and it really depends on what their physical abilities are, what they're interested in taking on. You know, obviously they could downsize to just a smaller home, and a lot of people do that. There's a huge demand right now for single floor living ranch style homes. That's a big market right now, and that's competitive because it's not just that generation that's looking for the single floor living. Interestingly enough, it's 50 up, so even the generation below what you would call a senior is looking to downsize. So it's kind of competitive right now. Condos are a popular choice for people looking to downsize.
I was going to ask you about that.
Yeah, so they don't want to deal with the maintenance anymore, but they're still living independently. So that's a great option for a lot of people. And of course, there's all different sizes of condos out there. So some people opt for the single living ones. There are 55 and up condo complexes. So that's a good option. There is 55 and up mobile homes or manufactured homes as an option. So again, if you're still independent but you don't want to deal with as much of the maintenance, there's that. And then there is the full assisted living option. So it really depends on mostly what their health is, typically.
Well, these 55 and up senior communities, what are those? And is that like a gated community, or is that you don't have a yard and things to take care of in those situations, do you? Or
Not
do you?
usually, but sometimes you do. It depends on how the complex got put together. There's some where they're not really gated usually around here, but they are, private and separated. And some of them, it's completely maintenance free on the exterior, and some you have a yard that you take care of. So it's sort of independent to each complex.
And cost-wise, are those options generally less in price than buying a home, or are
Not
they on the
always.
same? Are they in the same level or more?
It depends. Sometimes these condo complexes are quite a bit more than a single family would be. And then you do have the fees. Condo complexes have a variety of association fees, which varies, again, complex to complex, depending on what they provide.
Do you have any sense of what those monthly fees can be?
Yeah, they typically run somewhere between $250 a month and maybe as high as $500, depending on what the amenities are.
Okay.
So some complexes offer a lot of extras, like a pool or a clubhouse or things like that, and others are just the bare, minimum of just the yard maintenance.
Yeah, that's interesting. Here in Westfield, what options do people have when you start looking at that?
They have all those options. There are several 55 and up communities. There's the 55 and up manufactured park here in town. There's several condo complexes. There is assisted living in and close to Westfield. So they have a lot of options.
And how do people find those options, or would they first really connect with someone like yourself to say, this is what I'm interested in, and then you'll help
Yeah.
direct them on where to go and what to find?
Yes, I recommend to everyone that they contact their trusted realtor. I'm here for them if they would like to talk with me, obviously, but if they're already connected with somebody that they want to work with, they should contact their realtor to get the moving pieces put together, because realtors, it's our business to have all those connections already in place. So we can sit down with a client and find out what their unique needs are and be able to start directing them who they should contact, how we do it. And as far as the buying process, what usually happens is you'll hire the realtor to help you sell the home, but at the same time, that same realtor is assisting you with purchase as well.
Okay. Oh, so they can do both.
Yes,
All right. And they're representing you.
yes.
Okay.
And it works out best that way, because then you've got one person controlling all of the important key elements.
Right, right. That's interesting. So let's talk about that next step, which is, how do you prepare your home? You've been living in a home for years and years and years. My wife and I moved to Westfield. I laughingly joke with her on this, but we moved to Westfield almost 30 years ago, and when we bought our house, it had nothing in it. Now I look around between the garage, the basement, and everything else, and her knickknacks, and I cringe and I say, oh my gosh, how would we ever downsize or move to the next house with everything that we've owned? So how do you deal with that?
Yeah, that's usually the sticking piece. And oftentimes, when I'm talking to people who are interested in downsizing, the thing that's holding them up is their stuff.
Yeah, a lot of it.
And the problem is their kids don't usually want the stuff. Like, they've kept it thinking, oh, I'll pass this to the next generation. And things have changed. People are a lot more minimalist, I think, and styles have changed. And so their kids, typically, outside of a few maybe heirlooms or special mementos, they don't want the stuff. All the extra china sets and all that kind of stuff is sort of not interesting to the younger generations. So I think two things happen: is the seniors, they're kind of sad that nobody wants their precious things, because to them they are precious things, and they don't know where they should put them or do.
Right.
So I have several options for them. If they have things that are of value, financial value, we can set up an estate sale. And there are people out there that come in and do the entire thing, so the owners don't have to do one thing. You know, Obviously, people have tag sales and sell their own things too. And then if you're down to just the stuff that didn't sell, some of it could likely be donated, and we have services that can come and pick it up and take it away. And some of it might have to go in the trash. And again, we have people that come in and do the whole thing. So it doesn't have to be as labor intensive as I think people imagine it will be. But that's usually the thing that's overwhelming them more than the choice to move, is what to do with the stuff.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's and generally, how much time do you have to focus? I mean, I'm guessing that before you put your house on the market, you should be thinking about starting to wean out and get rid of a lot of things. And how much time I mean, is that a couple of months worth of work? Or?
It depends on how motivated they are. That's why I encourage, when I'm talking to people and they're asking the similar types of things to what you're asking me, is start as early as possible. And real estate professionals who work with seniors don't expect things to happen overnight. We have our expectations in place that this is going to be a longer process, which is fine. And it should be, because this is one of the biggest decisions that these people are making, to leave their usually family home, which can be very emotional. It is emotional. And so starting early can help. You can do it steps at a time. If you've got your realtor in place and they're well connected, you can lean on your realtor to help you through the process and help make some of those phone calls and connections. And then once you've pared down and gotten, and we advise too what you should keep and what you, I mean, not should keep, but oftentimes my clients will say, should I get rid of this? And so, the answer usually is yes. It almost always, if you're asking me if it
Right.
should go, the answer is probably yes. But you've got to wean down, and then there's typically some work that has to be a little refresh that needs to be done to the house to get it in premium shape for the market.
So what? So when you think about the house, what should the house really look like in your mind? What's the perfect viewing situation for people walking in thinking about buying your house? What should your house look like?
Yeah, it's not going to look like your house anymore. And people struggle with that. And I understand because I've sold my house before too, and I had to take my own advice. And it's difficult because you're used to living with your stuff and your precious family photos and mementos from trips you've taken or whatever might be that is special and important to you. And that's all got to go for putting it on the market. It doesn't have to go forever, but it needs to go in a box somewhere. No pictures really on the walls unless it's just something neutral. Staging your home basically means making it look like a retail space. So you want to imagine you're walking sort of into a very sparse pottery barn or a crate and barrel kind of an idea where the walls are neutral and the furniture is not over full, And part of the furniture thing, because I usually advise to get the furniture down to pretty bare bones,
Wow.
because when people are walking through, you got to think about how buyers work. It's not just one person walking through the room. It's at least 2 to 3 people. You've got the realtor, usually 2 buyers. Sometimes they bring family members along with them. And now you've got, 2 to 5 people weaving their way through the living room. And so if there's a lot of furniture, it starts to feel very cluttered and, confining. So leaving it more open is just better for the showing experience. But it's tough on people to live in that space. I try to tell them that try not to think of this as home the way you have. Try to think of this as your biggest commodity that you own right now. We're trying to get as much of your hard-won equity out, and the best way to do that is to make it a retailed space.
Yeah, that's really, really interesting. Can you sell any of the stuff? Will people buy kitchen sets or living room stuff? Can you offer that as an option? How do you handle that part?
You mean sell it to the potential buyer?
Right.
Sometimes that happens, not typically. And it depends on what price point of a house we're looking at, because a lot of times you're dealing with buyers who are moving up and they already have, they already have their furnishings.
Okay.
So they don't need 2 kitchen tables, so.
Oh, right.
But, if it usually works out if it's a first-time home buyer that doesn't have their stuff, they might be willing to pay for it. But
What about lawn mowers and snow blowers or that kind of thing?
yeah, yep, that can be worked out. And sometimes people just leave them because they just don't want to deal with it. They offer it to the buyer as sort of a bonus. And just we don't want to take it with us. You can have it. It works out both ways, but.
Yeah, that's interesting. You mentioned doing a refresh. What does that mean?
So if your walls haven't been painted recently, that means taking everything off the walls and getting a nice fresh coat of a contemporary neutral shade, which right now gray is trending for that. If you have carpeting on the floor that is worn, you either want to get it cleaned if it's still salvageable, or if it's really dated colors, you may want to just bite the bullet and get a new carpet. If there's hardwood under the carpet, that's a big score. Just take the carpet up and have the hardwood. That's what everybody wants now, is all solid surface. If the kitchen hasn't been taken a look at in a while, you may want to consider not doing the whole. I never recommend doing the whole kitchen over like big budget, because you're not going to get your money back. But there's some things that we professionals can recommend when we walk through that might not cost big money, but will make the house look so much better that you will get a better value on the sale. So it's important to consult with somebody that has experience that can tell you do this or don't do that, because a lot of the time they think they have to do something that's a big ticket item, and I don't recommend that they do it.
Okay, that's interesting because I was just sitting here thinking, I mean, even a paint job could probably cost upwards of $10,000. I'm guessing if you have someone come in, depending on what you
I,
have.
if the whole house needs it, yeah,
Right,
I don't know. Yeah.
right. But if, typically I know in our house, our ceilings, I can see some cracks where uh, over the years, the change in the sheetrock that's been put up, you
Mm-hmm.
can see where the seams are starting to show a little bit. And I say, oh boy, I'm going to have to repaint, get someone to fix that and then repaint that. And it's got a pebbled finish. And I'm thinking, oh boy, that's going to be expensive and hard to do. So,
Yeah. Well, and that's another reason to start earlier, if you can, because you can pick away at it instead of having it be one major
right,
thing.
right. What's the best time of year people should be thinking about selling?
Well, if I was to poll the public, they would say spring, but in reality, the fourth quarter is our busiest quarter.
Meaning the fall
Mm-hmm.
into the winter?
Mm-hmm.
Really?
Yep. Statistically, Park Square statistics. I can't, so these are Park Square, but statistically, what we have discovered is we sell more homes in the fourth quarter.
Why is that? Because everybody always says, oh, you got to do it in the spring, the summer, so you can move your family, get the kids into their schools if they've got to change schools and kind
Yeah.
of resettle. I never would have thought of the fourth quarter, which is, busy with holidays. You got Columbus Day, you got Thanksgiving, Halloween, Christmas.
Yeah, it's
Oh,
it's counterintuitive for sure, but it's a real thing. The problem with the spring market, and probably not this year because we're experiencing a strong seller's market, but in most years, the problem with the spring market is because everyone thinks that spring is the best time to sell, everyone puts their house on the market in the spring, which means then you have way more competition. So again, the right time to sell is when you're ready. It's going, that we're gonna be able to make it work no matter what time of the year it is. But you're going to have more competition if you decide for a spring sale. So I usually counsel people if the spring is the right time for them, let's try to do early in the season before everybody gluts the market.
should people have a sense of what they want to do as their next step before they start to get ready to sell the house? How does the juggling of the timing of, all right, I'm going to sell this, but do I put an offer on something else and then hold on that?
It can be stressful, but we do it all the time where we coordinate people selling and buying all on the same day. That's the most common thing that happens for people because most people need the money from property A to go to property B.
Right.
There are some people who have the ability to buy and then sell, which is a much easier way to do it if you can afford it. But even some people that can afford it, they don't want to take on two properties at once.
Right.
So that's a risk of, how much of a risk aversion do you have? So typically we are doing it all in the same day. And that's part of the reason why you need to have a good realtor on your team who can manage both of those sales to keep everything on target.
So when should you start looking for a new place?
I usually tell people to start feeling the market out a little before they're ready to put the house on the market, just to, not to necessarily go looking, but just start checking online, see what's out there, start to drive around, look at the neighborhoods, start to crystallize a thought in your mind of what would work for you. And then once we're ready to get the house on the market, then it's time to start looking. But you're really not going to be able to make an offer that's going to be accepted. If you have to sell your house, then it needs to be on the market when you make that offer, or the sellers are really not going to take you seriously. So,
Yeah, that's interesting. And I'm guessing that you need to have done all your prep work before all that starts because the prep work's got to be done before you put it on the market. So it does make sense that the timing. I hear stories of people selling their house the same day or within 3 days and
Yeah,
getting over asking price. And
that's all true right now. It won't last forever, but it is true right now.
now, is that because of COVID? What kind of impact has COVID had on the real estate market?
Well, we've had a serious low inventory situation for several years now, actually. It's been a seller's market for quite a while, and when COVID happened, a year ago, all of us in the real estate industry were very concerned that we were going to be out of a job because, you would think when you've got a pandemic going on, everybody's going to be full stop on everything. And interestingly, it was not at all the case. It slowed down for maybe the month of March. Then people got their feet back under them and things started right back up again. Interest rates are a huge moving part of it because they are so low. So people who had a good job and were qualified to buy want to take advantage of the great interest rates right now. But yeah, it's super competitive. I had one house last fall. It had 68 showings over 2 days and 15 offers over asking price.
Wow.
Yep, I had to do a spreadsheet, and it was intense. And that's not that uncommon. That was my biggest one. But we're making spreadsheets for offers all the time now because there's so much
Activity.
yeah.
Right. It used to be you're begging somebody to come in and give you an offer.
Used to average days on the market for years and years and years was 120 plus days. Typically, had a house on the market for a couple of months before you got a buyer. That was normal. Now, I tell my sellers this is going to be gone.
That's amazing. So I think a big part of that, it's going to be gone factor is based on price. How do you determine the price? And then this concept of people coming in and offering more than what you're asking baffles me. Typically, you're always trying to go in and ask them for less.
Yeah, no, that doesn't work right now. I mean, not really. Yeah, so the pricing part is always one of the most important things to get right. And we as realtors, when you're pricing it, at least I do, I take an appraisal model because more than likely your buyer is going to need a mortgage and that mortgage company will be doing an appraisal. So what that means is we're looking back no more than 6 months, preferably even closer, for homes that are geographically close and similar in style and size and amenities. And, you usually can't find 100% match, so we do have to do a little adjusting and kind of educated guessing. And then because the market has heated up, we're doing time adjustment. So if it sold 6 months ago, it's likely worth a little bit more now. So if something sold for $200,000 6 months ago, probably it's worth 210, 215 at this point.
Wow.
So you make those adjustments. And I usually recommend that we price it at fair market, near fair market value with a little bump on it. If you overprice even in this market, you're going to shoot yourself in the foot. If you price it fairly, that's when you're getting those bidding wars. Because the buyers all see it, they're hawking the internet looking for new properties to come on. And when they see one that comes on that looks great and has the right price, then that's what heats them up and gets them, a little fear of missing out, I guess, So that strategy, in my eyes, works the best.
That's really, really interesting.
But I have to caution people because even if you get, I had one house that bid up $40,000 over what we were asking. And she took the offer, but I said to her, Mrs. Seller, it may not appraise. So we need to be ready that this is not necessarily going to be the price. It's going to be more than what you were asking no matter what. But it might not be the full $40,000 more. So let's not bank on that money because it's not real yet.
So so that means that they can't get a mortgage for the amount that they're going to sell it or that they're going to buy it for.
Yeah, so let's say
They may be willing to pay X amount plus 40, but they can't get a mortgage to equal that.
correct. Yep. So then usually the price, either the price gets adjusted, or if they have cash, if the buyers have the ability to make up the difference, they can do that. And some people are willing to, but usually it ends up being an adjustment down in the value. So, but in this market, as I said, even if it didn't appraise, this particular house that I'm talking about, it did. It ended up appraising. But she was prepared because we had had the talk that there's a chance that, you might see only 20 of the extra 40,000, But whatever it is, it's more than what you were expecting when we put it on the market. So it's gravy.
It's interesting. A good friend of mine was telling me how his daughter was looking for a home up in Vermont, offered 105,000 over asking price, and still didn't get it.
Yeah.
And I was like stunned. I'm thinking, are you kidding me? They're 105,000 over asking. How do you even know that? So it makes me think about the fact that people say, "Oh, wow, I'm going to make this gold mine when I sell my house." But then I think, what happens now? You got to buy something. You're in the same situation, so you're really not any better off.
Yeah, and in some cases, you're just moving your equity over,
Right.
And so that extra money that you made on your house is paying for the extra money that you have to pay on the next house. Yeah, that part's the trick. That's the tricky part of the seller's market.
Wow. Amazing. So, part of this is the open house, is this concept of, oh boy, I've got strangers walking through my house. And your point earlier is that it's such a personal experience. You've lived there, all your memories are there, your life it's part of who you are, and all of a sudden your house is now open to all these strangers walking through. Is that an adjustment for people to have to get used to?
Absolutely, yeah, and not everybody wants an open house, and that's okay. But in some cases, an open house might actually be a little more emotionally comfortable because you leave the house for a few hours and it's over with. And in this market, you likely are going to get it sold with just that one bunch of showings versus traditional, which would be, a smattering of showings here and there, and you got to keep cleaning and getting out and staying out and, rinse, recycle, repeat. For some people, it's just easier to just do the open house and have it. But yeah, it is an adjustment. It's something that I counsel people about and talk to them about, and things that they should do to get ready for an open house. There's things that you don't want in your house when it's open. So take the medications, take the valuables, lock up anything. And even if they still have personal effects out, I'll say, if that vase is important to you, you want to put it away. Because somebody might hip check it by accident and, your Ming vase is gone. So, but, it's really an individual decision if they want one or they don't want one.
Yeah, that's a great point. What's involved in picking a real estate broker, someone that you're going to work with? How do people go about just finding someone like yourself?
Most of the time, over 85% of my business comes from repeat clients and referrals. So most of the time they're asking their friends, if it was normal senior center time, they're going to the lunch and saying, I'm thinking about moving. Do you guys know any good realtors? Maybe they'll be lucky it's my day to sit in the cafeteria and they can come over and talk to me. I hope we're going to be back to that soon.
Right.
But so a lot of time it's a referral thing. But I do recommend people do their research because even with a referral, you might not be a good personality match. And you're going to be with each other for a few months. And you want to know that you're going to be able to trust and get along and hopefully enjoy being with your real estate agent. because think about dealing with somebody for 3 months that you got to talk to multiple times a day that you can't stand. That would be awful.
That is very, very true. Do people have to, do they sign a contract with you? There's paperwork that they've got to fill out, or?
Yes. Yeah. Not a ton of paperwork, but yes, there's several listing documents that we have to get signed. And then, of course, throughout the transaction, there's paperwork after paperwork. Real estate is still trying to kill trees, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But we do a lot of online document signing now. And I'm impressed with our senior generation because most of them prefer it, which surprised me when I first started rolling that out as my preferred method of doing documents. They like it better too. And during COVID, that it's been a lifesaver because,
Yeah.
trying not to be face to face as as little as we need to.
Right. Um, I just lost my train of thought here. What? Oh, I know what I was going to ask. Are you representing the seller? Are you looking out for their best interest? Are you helping to guide them on their? I wouldn't accept that offer. I think we can do better, or we need to drop a price of the house, or we need to, how much do they? There's a trust that has to be developed between you and the seller, obviously. How much can they expect that you're really looking out for their best interest?
Well, a good agent should be 100% looking out for their best interests. And yes, when you sign a listing agreement, you are a seller's agent. You're working for the seller. There's locally, there's three major kinds of agency that we see. Seller's agency, which is when you represent a listing. Buyer's agency, when you're the buyer's agent representing the buyer. And then there's disclosed dual agency. And that's a case where, let's say I have Madam Seller's house on the market and a buyer comes to the open house and the buyer wants the house and they ask me to write the offer. Now I'm a disclosed dual agent. But it doesn't change your fiduciary responsibilities, and there's still a lot of all of the discretion and privacy involved still. But a seller's agent should be counseling all the way through, right from the get-go of how to stage the house and prepare it, to discussing the benefits of different offers, because sometimes the best offer is not the highest offer. Sometimes the best offer has better terms and conditions.
Oh.
And that's something that's important for, sellers to consider is, maybe the seller's timeline is the most important thing to them. Like they want to make enough money, but it's more important that the timeline be hit than they get the extra $5,000. So there's variables in there, and I try to guide people and point out those decision-making moments so that they have the best information at hand to make a solid decision that's best for them specifically.
Yeah, that's really, really interesting. So you're in the market to sell your house. You get somebody comes in and makes an offer. Their next step, I think, is to do a home inspection on it. Mm-hmm. Then this list of things comes out because they're being picky and they find all kinds of things that you either knew about or didn't know about. How do you handle that list of items that comes back and says, well, this could be done, that could be done, these windows, that door, whatever it might be?
Yeah. So one of the benefits of this seller's market is we're not seeing as much of that because the buyers are aware that they were in a multiple bidding situation, and they're aware that if they come at you with a laundry list of requests that you could just say no and go to the other offers and say, anybody still want it? But there's no such thing as a perfect house, no matter how well maintained it is. You could be the most immaculate, impeccable homeowner. There's going to be something that comes up on the home inspection. That's the inspector's job. They're supposed to find flaws, issues, problems, whether they're big or small. When I'm a buyer's agent, what I counsel my buyers is home inspections are for your education. There's nothing in the contract that says the seller has to fix anything except for if there's a wood destroying bug infestation. They are responsible for that up to $1,000. But nothing else is in that contract that says that they're going to fix anything.
Oh, really?
Yeah, no, you just have the rights to inspections. That's it. So what happens when you make an inspection request is you technically have nullified the contract, and it's common practice, and we do it all the time. And if the issue is big enough where a buyer wouldn't want the house anymore unless they had some solution, then that's the time that it's appropriate to discuss it. But if you're talking about jiggly doorknobs or a missing GFI outlet or, silly little picky things like you said, those are not worth risking the contract over, because what happens is Mr. Buyer puts in a laundry list of requests to the seller, and the seller says, I'm not selling it anymore. And they can sell it out from under the buyer at that point. That's the only way that a seller can get out of the contract, is if the buyer changes the terms and they don't accept the terms. So it's a risky move to make laundry lists, people. If you're buying, be careful.
And just recognize that it's pre-owned with love, and you're going to have to put your own attention to it and repaint and do all the other things.
There's always something. Just, I tell,
cracks in the walls.
look at it as a honey-do punch list, and, most of it's not critical. Most of it people live with all the time. Every single inspection I go on, extend the gutter downspouts, reverse polarity on electric sockets, missing GFIs. Every house, like almost 100%, those things come up. It's just a thing,
Okay.
Yeah,
So nothing to be too concerned about.
no,
Okay.
no.
And I'm guessing that if you know something serious, you should be disclosing that. You should be upfront.
Yes, Massachusetts is a full disclosure state. So if you are aware of something that would impact the potential value or saleability of the home, if you get seasonal seepage every April, you get a trickle down the bulkhead, you should disclose that. And so material flaws, yeah, you really should disclose them. But a lot of time, things come up on the inspection that the seller straight up didn't know. They didn't realize it.
That's really, really interesting. So you also need to find an attorney, I'm thinking. Can you just talk a little bit about that process and when do you engage with an attorney, and how do you find an attorney?
Sure. Yeah, Massachusetts requires an attorney to represent both parties for the sale of real estate. And again, your realtor, as a resource, should have a list of trusted advisors. I have a very short list of attorneys that I recommend that have been vetted by myself and my clients over the course of the years and have proven that they work diligently in the best interests of their clients and do a good job. And sometimes it's a personality thing. I might know that this attorney's very jocular and this client is very quiet. They're not going to get along. So I'll say a different, lead them to a different attorney that would be more in line with their personality, because they also have to be comfortable with and trust that attorney's advice. And so you engage an attorney usually once the offer stage has begun. So, but you don't pay in real estate. You don't pay like a retainer fee or anything. It's a closing cost. So you pay one flat fee at the end, unless stuff goes sideways and they have to do more work. But for a traditional, normal closing, you're just paying one flat fee
To the attorney.
to the attorney, and that happens at the closing.
Now, actually, that was a question I had before, and I forgot. What about what is the commission to you from the buyer, or from the seller, rather?
Yeah,
when
so
you sell?
the seller pays the commission, and when we put it on the market, we offer to share some of that commission with the buyer's agent. So the buyer's agent gets paid through the listing agency, which got paid through the seller. Commissions are not a set figure.
They're not.
They are
I
not.
always thought they were like 6%.
That's probably the most common number, but it's not a fixed thing. It can be less, it could be more. It depends on a varying factors.
Really?
Yeah. So, but yeah, that what you hear is the most common figure
Right.
that is around. But it's not standard.
So then you see people saying, well, I'm going to save that 6%. I'll sell it for what I wanted, plus I'll keep the 6%, and I'm going to do it, and you see these things, for sale by owner. What's your advice on that versus working with a realtor?
It can be done, but it's hard to navigate. There's a lot more moving parts to selling a house than just getting the buyer in place. That's usually the easiest part. Planting a sign, putting it online, and opening the door, anybody can do, right? You don't have to be a professional to do those three things. What happens is after you've got the buyer, it gets tricky and things can get very complicated and negotiations can get sometimes heated. And if you don't have a realtor there to A, buffer, but B, advise you, you might end up spending that 6% on something else anyway, because if you're not a good negotiator, you might end up rolling over on an offer that you could have gotten more for, or rolling over on those inspection requests because you don't want to start all over again. So, I mean, some people do it successfully, but it's really not for most people. And traditionally, most people who start out as a for sale by owner end up hiring a realtor in the end.
Oh, they do. That's interesting.
Yeah, most people do.
You're
It's
right.
frustrating and it's
Right.
hard. I had to sell my own home. And I ended up asking one of my coworkers to help me with open houses and things because I hated opening the door of my own house. And it was, even as a real estate professional, it was really awkward. So,
It's good to hear you say that.
Yeah.
There's hope for the rest of us then if you're going through the same thing. You understand and
Oh,
that sense of empathy.
oh yeah, yeah.
That's great.
Been there, done that.
Leslie, this has been a fascinating conversation. Is there anything else that we haven't covered and that you think is really pertinent to this interview?
No, I would just like to, encourage people to go ahead and, I've said this already, but I'm going to reiterate. Go ahead and reach out long before you're actually ready. Lean in on a professional, get their advice, make sure that it's somebody you trust and you like, and then you're not bothering. I'll speak for myself. When people do that with me, they're not bothering me. I enjoy hearing from people and I enjoy building up that relationship. And, I look at it like we can start this year and God willing, in 3 years, we're all still here and I can help you. And that's fine. That's my job. That's my job. So, but a lot of people, and especially the senior population, they don't want to bother you.
You're right.
And
right.
they're so polite about it, and they're really trying to be respectful of my time, which I appreciate. But they don't need to be so respectful that they don't ask questions when they have them. And people like me, we're here for you. I trained to be here for you. I love working with the senior population. They're some of my favorite people to deal with. They've got so much experience and things to teach me while we're on our journey. I learn from them as much as I hope they learn from me. But yeah, it's, just if you're thinking about it, go ahead and start working on it and don't feel rushed and don't feel like you're bothering.
Yeah, that's great. Well, Leslie Lambert, I want to thank you very much for coming in today. Fascinating interview, a lot of information that our seniors our aging population can certainly learn from. And as I would say to our viewers, it's not a question of if you're going to sell your home, it's a question of when. And if I've learned anything, now is the time, even though you may not be ready to put it on the market, to start kind of weaning through everything, taking a look at little things you can fix up, but really starting to downsize and really declutter and make the emotional detachment on a lot of the things that you probably aren't going to take with you. Start thinking about what that next move is, where you want to go area-wise or the size of facility, whether it's a standalone home or a condo, which I was thinking that was a neat option, or any of these 55 and up communities that you can move into. But a lot of options to really start thinking about. And as we get older, we really are faced with the fact that, we're getting tired of taking care of the big house. The children have gone on. We don't have as many visitors anymore. And it is time to simplify life a little bit so that we can travel and do the things that we really like to do rather than taking care of a property. So definitely start thinking about that. I want to thank Pete Coles, our producer here at WCPC Cable Channel 15, for doing everything he's done to make this interview possible. And Tina Gorman, Executive Director of the Westfield Senior Center, thank you for making all of these series possible for our seniors to view every Tuesday. I think it's at 2:45 every Tuesday of the month that these will show. And seniors, we hope to see you back in into the facility soon. Leslie will be there. If you see her, I would definitely take a minute to sit down with her or make an appointment with her to start exploring some of these questions that we have really raised today to start increasing your awareness and understanding of what's involved. So on behalf of Pete Coles and Tina Gorman, I'm Harry Rock. This has been another edition of the Westfield Council on Aging Presents on WCPC Westfield Cable Channel 15. Thanks for viewing in, everybody. Have a great day.